Cayetano would say that after this, after he put the trash on top of her, that she was still alive, but he just left her there. Check one, check one. We in here. Welcome back to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you. You're a real one. But if you are new to the channel, here we discuss strange and also true crime stories. But before we get into it, hold your horses before we get into it. If you are a lady out here looking good and take care of business, hit that like and subscribe button. But if you're not, I don't want you to worry about it. But if you are, if you're a strong, independent woman, go ahead and hit that like button, then hit that subscribe button. Let me know you're out here. If you are a fella out here drinking water, making money, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Only if you're a fella out here looking good, got your hair cut, making money, the ladies love you, hit that like and subscribe button. You know, I'm gonna hit it myself. Where's it at for me? Let me do it. Without further ado, let's get straight into the story. Cayetano was born in Buenos Aires on Halloween Day in 1896. Cayetano had an extremely large family with 7 siblings, but he was raised with an okay mother but an alcoholic father. Some reports would note that Cayetano didn't really feel like he was getting the attention that he wanted or deserved as a young boy growing up because he had so many siblings. His brothers normally picked on him because of his small body frame and he had large ears. His brothers also picked on him normally every single day, calling him the big-eared midget. The father was a heavy drinker, but this in part was due to the death of his 10-month-old son. When his father would drink, he would turn extremely violent, and he would take this anger out on his wife and also Cayetano and his other siblings. At times, he would beat them so bad that he would beat them to the brink of death. Cayetano's brothers actually picked up their father's habit of beating and started beating Cayetano when he was younger just because he was so much smaller and he couldn't fight back. Before Cayetano's birth, his father was a guitar player, and it was noted or rumored that he had an affair with one of his fans and contracted syphilis. He later passed that syphilis on to his wife, and then his wife gave birth to Cayetano, and he indeed was born with this disease. This resulted in Cayetano having serious health issues and concerns, and it resulted with him being in and out of the hospital in his younger years. During one of his examinations, Cayetano was found to have had 27 scars just on his head. When asked about it, Cayetano said that he got the scars from either his brother or his father. He said that they would repeatedly beat him in the head on multiple occasions. When I'm doing research on who I'm going to cover next, I'll read a little bit about the killer's youth or their past or anything like that. And a lot of killers have had multiple head trauma or head wounds. I think that sticks out to me. Could be a pattern. Let's continue. In his early years, Cayetano also became sick because of a disease called enteritis. Now, this comes from living or eating in places that are just unsanitary. Once Cayetano was old enough to go to school, he was frequently expelled just for bad behavior. And if he wasn't expelled, he would be roaming the neighborhoods just hanging out, and this led to him not being able to read or write. In September 1804, Miguel de Pauli was a 2-year-old boy that came across Cayetano. Now, Cayetano offered this boy candy in order to follow him into the desert just to hang out. The boy agreed and followed Cayetano to the desert for his candy. But once there, Cayetano began beating the boy for no reason. Now, to put this in perspective, Cayetano was 8 and this little boy was 2 during this incident. Now, after he finished beating him up, he just pushed the little boy into a ditch that was filled with a bunch of thorny bushes. A local police officer was around and he saw what happened, but instead of punishing Cayetano, he just took both boys to the police station and called their parents. So for this incident, Cayetano was never punished. Now, it wasn't long before Cayetano would get his next victim, and his next victim was an 18-year-old boy. Well, that's pretty much like a toddler. That's a little kid. That's like a baby. His next victim was an 18-month-old baby. I'm just gonna say baby. And he lured him into the desert with promises of candy again. Once there, Cayetano started beating the boy in the head with a rock, but he didn't kill him. And luckily, a police officer was there and he saw the entire thing. So what he did, he took Cayetano and this 18-month-old back to the police station. But when Cayetano's father got there, The father and the police officer just chalked it up to just two boys fighting, and they were both released, and nothing happened to Cayetano again. Are you kidding me? In 1906 is when Cayetano would say that he claimed his first victim. Now, some of this information came out once Cayetano was already captured. So when he was captured, that's when he would tell police about his previous murders or endeavors, his assaults, criminal, whatever, when he was younger. The police would say if he wouldn't have just offered this knowledge or this information of his past crimes, that they wouldn't have been able to put the two pieces together to know that it was him. Maria Rosa Face was a 3-year-old girl who Cayetano lured into the desert, but this time there was no cop to step in and stop this assault. The two ended up on Rio de Janeiro Street, and that's when Cayetano began strangling this young girl. Cayetano wasn't strong enough to just strangle her to death, so what he did after strangling her for some time, he beat her up some more and then tossed her into a ditch and put trash over her. Cayetano would say that after this, after he put the trash on top of her, that she was still alive, but he just left her there. The family of the girl put out a massive search, but they were never able to find her body. So after some time, the family, just distraught, moved to Italy. So years later for this case, Cayetano would tell the police this story. They would go back to where the body should be, or around to where the body should be, but there was a 2-story building built over top of the ditch that Cayetano said he left the body. The owners of the house did not agree for law enforcement to, I guess, do construction or do some whatever to get under the house to see if the little girl was there. So to this day, we do not know if the girl is there or if she's not there. Cayetano would say that days after he killed this girl, he killed the family bird and put the bird into a shoebox. But after he did that, he plucked out the eyes of the bird and then put the shoebox by the father's bed. The father knew that it was Cayetano, but he couldn't prove it. But he still went to the local police and asked the police to please do something about this. But with no evidence, they really couldn't do anything about that. I would be terrified to do something like that to my dad, especially if he's an alcoholic and he's just punching people at random. You might catch a right hook to the eyeball for playing with birds and stuff. Let's proceed. At the age of 10, Cayetano was caught by his mother masturbating. Now at this, it's not funny. Okay. At this time, it was considered illegal to, I guess, masturbate or do this act. So the mother called the police and Cayetano was placed in jail for 2 months. This man was placed in jail for 2 months for choking his chicken. He was choking his own chicken. He wasn't doing it to anybody else. You don't put him in jail and then your mom's gonna tell on you? I bet if his dad caught him, he wouldn't have told. He understands. He understands. Years later, Cayetano would lure a young boy into an abandoned warehouse. Cayetano tried to drown the boy in a local trough. A trough is kind of like a... This is a trough. The owner of the abandoned building being close by ran out to see what was going on. Cayetano was able to convince the man that he wasn't trying to drown the boy, but instead, a shadowy figure that looked like a woman came out and was trying to take the boy's life. Cayetano was able to convince the man who owned the building and the police officer about this woman. He convinced the police officer so much that the police officer launched an investigation to find this mysterious, smoky woman who just comes out of the shadows. But then I started thinking, why didn't they just ask the boy who was trying to drown? Just ask the little kid who was being drowned. But no, it wasn't a lady, it was him. Yeah, it was him. He tried to drown me right here into the water. Yeah, him. Arrest him. A little time after this, Cayetano would take cigarette butts and find an infant and burn the eyelids of this infant. He managed to get away before the mother could identify him. On January 17, 1912, Cayetano gets the bright idea to burn down a warehouse. But in burning down the warehouse, a lot of witnesses saw him and was able to tell the police that it was Cayetano who had done this. When the police asked Cayetano why he did this, he said, "I like to see firemen working. It's nice to see them fall into the fire." So he said that to the police officers. His next victim was a 13-year-old boy named Arturo Larora. he was found dead in an abandoned building, and the reports would say that his body was beaten repeatedly before his death. Cayetano confessed that after he beat the boy repeatedly, he ended up strangling him until he died. Arturo later came across a 5-year-old girl who was dressed in her favorite dress, standing outside of a shop window looking through the glass at a pair of nice shoes that she liked. Cayetano snuck up behind the girl and lit her dress on fire. Now, it only took a couple of seconds before she was screaming and running around trying to put the fire out. The girl's grandfather was across the street, and once he saw what was going on, he took off immediately, running across the street, but was struck by a car and died instantly on the scene. A police officer came running up and saw that the little girl was on fire, so he just jumped and threw himself on the girl to smother out the flames, which actually he did. But while she was at the hospital, the burns became to be too much for her body to handle, and she died 16 days later. Police had no idea how the fire started, so again, Cayetano was able to get away scot-free with this crime as well. Cayetano was finally arrested after the body of a 3-year-old boy was found in a local neighborhood. Now, the locals would say that Cayetano was the #1 suspect because he was just being weird and lurking around this area at the time. Now, once arrested and in custody, during questioning, Cayetano just gave up all of this information, some things that the cops knew that he was a part of, and then some things they had no idea that it was him. In his mind, he knew that it was over, so he was just, I guess, willing to give up this information. I don't know why, but he just gave up the information. In the end, Cayetano murdered 4 people, had attempted to murder 5 people, and assaulted 2 others. During interrogation, when he was giving up this information, the reports would say that he showed no remorse for any of his deeds, and he was deemed Argentina's first serial killer. In January 1913, Cayetano was sentenced to a reformatory. While at the reformatory, he tried to take the lives of a few inmates. The number is unknown though, but it is noted that he did try to kill some of the inmates that he was housed with. After a healthcare specialist ruled that Cayetano was indeed legally insane, the judge dropped all charges, but he was still sentenced for the rest of his life to this reformatory. But in November 1915, a repeal was set and Cayetano was pulled from the reformatory and sent to jail. Once in jail, Cayetano took the lives of 2 pet cats that belonged to the prisoners. Once the prisoners found out, they beat him so bad that he was sent to the hospital. Shortly after that, he remained very ill and remained at the hospital for another decade. And in 1944, Cayetano would pass away under mysterious circumstances. Cayetano would die at the age of 48, and the mysterious circumstances were never determined. And that is the story of Cayetano Santos Godino. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe for this video, and I will see you on another one.